All right, number one. Number one. So everybody follow along here. What caused new legislation to be passed in New Jersey in 1973? What do we have? We got Jeffrey, go ahead.
States like New York and Pennsylvania were allowing garbage to be transferred from their states into New Jersey landfills, and New Jersey didn't like this, so they passed legislation saying that liquid waste that oriented or was collected outside of territorial limits of the state was not allowed to be dumped in private or state landfills.
Okay, so New Jersey's saying, hey, we want to protect our environment, right? And if we're accepting waste from other states, then this is only going to cause even more issues to our environment. So we're going to create a law, try to ban out of state waste from coming into our state. Pretty good idea, right? Nice plan, great law, but unfortunately it didn't go their way, it didn't go their favor anymore. I mean, this is brought up in today's world. Holy cow, this would raise a lot of eyebrows. Even then, though, still raise a lot of eyebrows, especially since your state's trying to clean up a little bit of some of the issues going on there with the waste coming from other states and improve the environment. And here all of a sudden, right, you cut off the flow coming in and might cause a lot of uproars around the nation. All right, good, good. So that was the biggest cause here, this new legislation, because New Jersey wanted to try to enhance their efforts of cleaning up the environment. Two, why do waste haulers consider their shipments a form of commerce? What we have for two here. Brock, go ahead. Yeah, good job. So it has a form of commercial value, right? As they're paying people to haul this trash from, let's say, an out-of-state location into their landfills. So yeah, it does have some sort of a price to it. It has some sort of obviously profit revenue towards that type of service. So yeah, that's why they consider their trash a form of commercial value, which is pretty interesting to think about. It's like, oh well, trash isn't something that obviously you can make money off of. Well, for certain businesses, obviously, with the transportation of it, yeah, there's money on the line. All right, good. Three, what national impact might a decision concerning New Jersey have? What do you have for three? Tanner, go ahead.
The trash could just be shipped somewhere else and dumped somewhere else.
Yeah, good job. So with Philadelphia, they could just send it to another state, right? And if they could just continue to do this, this would cause a lot of issues to maybe another state's environment that obviously maybe doesn't have the capability of housing or holding this type of waste. So yeah, this could create a chain effect in a way of these states just kind of dumping their waste on other states to a point where this would only cause disruptions and issues to each other, maybe causing conflicts with one another, even more so than this certain one with Philadelphia here and New Jersey. Anything else for that? Anybody have something different? Madden, what do you have for three? What's that? It's not right. Terrence, what do you have for three?
They could remove some of people's jobs that they have for transporting.
Yeah, good job. That's a great point. So with job status, okay, that also could be on the line, and that could cause a big disruption with the economy, right, and some of the issues with that. Let's face it, all industries, schools, public facilities, you name it, they need to get rid of their trash. Okay, even residents, people living, they need their trash taken care of. So that could cause a huge disruption. Only imagine if it just piling up over and over for long periods of time. That's something that obviously a utility needs to be taken care of. All right, good. Anything else? Anybody have something different for number three? Okay, number four. Many states facing the same environmental and commerce issues that face New Jersey. What could be fear reaching result if the court decided in favor of New Jersey, in favor of landfill owners? In your opinion, does this Commerce Clause apply in this case? Why or why not? What do we think? What do we think? Jeffrey, you have your hand up over there?
If the Congress were to reach the agreement with New Jersey, that means that waste outside of the state of New Jersey will not be able to dump in New Jersey, meaning states like New York, Pennsylvania will have a surplus of waste that can happen.
Okay. All right. Good work. Good job. All right. Sarah, what do you have for four? What did you write? What did you say?
New Jersey, then the rest of the states will be stuck with we'll be stuck with the waste and we won't know what to do with it.
Yeah, where do you go with it, right? I mean, that's something that obviously is just a big question mark. You just can't dump it out in the middle of the ocean or anything like that. You heading down? All right. Good luck on your interview. All right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's one of the big question marks. What do you do with it? Especially like an urban city like Philadelphia, right? Where do you go with all that waste? And in this case for Philadelphia, they're landlocked. There's only so much, only a certain amount of in places where they can really go with this. Yeah, maybe they could send it internally in Pennsylvania somewhere like that, but obviously they had some sort of establishment with New Jersey to sending their waste there to certain landfills. All right, good job. Uh, Brock, what do you have for 4? Yeah, a lot more pollution in one area. That could obviously be way bigger concern, especially like I said, an urban area like Philadelphia, and stuck in between 2 rivers like they are. It's like, oh man, you just can't let it pile up there, right? You got to take it somewhere. All right, good, good. All right, is there any questions on that court case here? You guys good? All right, all right. I was going to show you the video, but I'll show it towards the end, maybe describing that court case. But I think we're all on the same page there. And that just goes to show with federalism where we're at. New Jersey, the state, trying to protect its environment, trying to do the right thing, of trying to stop, obviously this out of source, out of state waste coming into their state, trying to think of doing the right thing, and obviously it backfires on them. Why? Because, well, the national government controls interstate commerce. And where does it end then, right? If New Jersey says they're going to put a limit on out of state waste, what else can they limit, right? This could open up a lot of different routes, a lot of different things that could cause issues for all the states. Maybe it's other resources, maybe it's other raw materials, maybe it's other forms of supplies that really could cause a disruption with supply chain issues, right? And in today's world, obviously, right now, supply chain is one of those things that is causing a lot of issues all around the nation. And if there's a disruption of that falls suit on the national government, right? The national government needs to step up, try to solve some of these issues. And in this case, it's unfortunate for New Jersey, but kind of just goes to show where federalism was at that point and how the national government can, even in some cases, kind of prohibit a law like that New Jersey tried to establish. All right, so I had a bell ringer for you. It was pretty much just describing Philadelphia versus New Jersey, but I think I want to change this to more of the Federalist idea, something I just kind of described for you guys. So how federalism plays suit in this court case. All right, so how does this result in, let me just rewrite it for you guys. Let me just rewrite it. Since you guys pretty much answered it, you guys answered that and understand the court case. So let me rewrite this for a second here. I'll give you vocab terms for a while. How about that for today's lesson? As I'm coming up with a bell ringer for you guys, you can just write down these vocab terms for now. So I got sunset laws, sunshine laws. There you go. There you go. So today we're going to talk about federalism and politics, right? How that plays a role. There you go. All right, what do we got here? Sunset laws. What are they? What are they? Nathaniel, what do you have? Yeah, good job. Do you have an example of any? Oh, okay. All right. So maybe it's a policy, a law that's established that has a termination date. Okay, it has, after a certain given period of time, this will end. Right. So maybe can anybody think of an example of maybe a law or a policy that was created that will just be terminated after a certain period? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Prohibition.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that wasn't set up or established to end at some point. Okay. Again, obviously, we know the amendment, 21st Amendment came around and ended it, but these are laws at a given time, let's say in wartime, or maybe during a depression, or maybe during a pandemic, right? Where these policies are created or a law is created that is a given amount of time. Again, it'll be reevaluated once that termination date comes up, but eventually maybe being terminated after, let's say, wartime, a depression, or eventually a pandemic. Jeffrey, you had a hand up. What were we gonna say?
Draft then,
What's that?
the draft for this.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Good job. So the draft, it's a good example. All right. That's a good example. Selective Service Act. I guess you could say the Espionage Sedition Acts, 1917. You can say some of the New Deal agencies, right? During the Great Depression with FDR. Not all of them were set up to be established for a long period of time. After it was kind of ran through its course, they took it away. All right, good, good. Some of the policies today during the pandemic, right? Some of the mask mandates given a termination date. Again, kind of reevaluated after a certain time, depending on the cases. And if it has to be prolonged, it's prolonged. If not, then it's terminated. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah, okay. What about sunshine laws? What do we have? Rem, go ahead. Huh? Yeah, good job. So these committees, these policy making, any type of decisions being made, conversations, politicians, public officials, it has to be open to the public, right? It has to be made sure that there is no type of corruption being involved if it's behind closed doors. So sunshine law is just meaning that it's open to the public, that the people have the ability to see what's going on and understand some of the decisions being made. So school board meetings, right? That's a good example. School board meetings, it's open to the public via Zoom, or you can just show up, right? That's a good example that you can maybe put if you see it on a test. Any other type of decisions being made, let's say in Congress, it's always televised, right? It's always televised. It's always shown to the people of what's going on or decisions being made in Congress. All right, any questions on that, guys? With those two terms? Okay. So here's I got your bell ringer for you. So again, it's kind of something we just reviewed, but I want to make sure that you guys understand with federalism how this court case was big, impactful at the state and national level. So detail a conflict between Philadelphia versus New Jersey, 1978. How does this court case reflect federalism? You okay?
No, I'm not.
You need to go to the nurse.
No, there's nothing she can do.
All right. Just give me ice.
Jeez, thanks. If that's gonna help.
Bell ringer. Get working.
The school wants me to fill out the thing to bring in my inhaler.
All right.
I don't understand why.
I didn't hear you much in first period.
Huh?
I didn't hear you coughing too much in first period.
then who'd get yelled at?
Who would yell at you?
No,
No one's yelling at you.
like, you know how some of the kids are.
Okay.
It was just that, this one was just.
Mm. Give me another minute to finish up here. Bless you. All right. So with this court case here, we just talked about, you read about last night. How does this court case reflect federalism? What do we have? Chase, what do you got?
It's probably not right, but,
Why do you start off like that?
what?
Why do you start off your answer like that?
Because it's probably not right.
Oh, I'm
What I
sure
thought
it's
it was
okay.
kinda like going back to like the Constitution, Constitution says,
Okay.
deeming what they're doing on the Constitution.
All right. Yeah. Good job. So with the full faith and credit clause, right? We were talking about the commerce clause yesterday, and how transportation, interstate commerce, obviously, is held by the national government. And if something like this is prevented by the state of New Jersey, who knows what else could be prevented from incoming into the state or outgoing. And this is, again, bringing up that issue at the state and national level. The national government controls the commerce. If the states did, well, who knows what could happen, right? And that's one of the reasons why the Articles of Confederation was altered, right? Was changed. I know we talked about that a little bit ago, but again, bringing up that idea of the state and national government, how they have a relationship with one another, what powers they might have over, let's say, another. Okay, good. So today, just want to talk about federalism and public policies. Okay. So federalism and politics. So real quick, what is a public policy? What does that mean? What is a public policy? Go ahead, Tanner.
Something that affects everybody.
Okay, all right, of an organization or group, right? Here in the United States, policy could be created at the national level, depending on the time period. We all know with the pandemic policy, we know the mask mandates, right? And now being followed a little bit with vaccinations. So some policies, obviously, Congress might have an issue with, or maybe the court system. Okay, so the courts definitely can view this policy as being unconstitutional or not. Other policies being created might be with climate. Okay, it might be with taxes, obviously. It might be with different forms of infrastructure, other public services, you name it. So good. Public policy with federalism is also kind of at a point where there's different levels of the government that have a say and understanding of what they might want to accept in their own given jurisdiction, in their own areas. So this might be a policy, let's say, that's created by the national level. We know that states and local areas might have a different idea of what that policy means to them. Okay, so we all know with different states, with mask mandates and different ideas of making the vaccinations mandatory, that's one big thing today. In today's world, Texas, Florida especially, challenging that policy. Because again, they have their own territory, right? They have their own land, they have their own, I guess, say jurisdiction where they can maybe have a conflict with the national government on this idea. Again, I'm not saying what side's right or wrong, but just bringing up the idea of these policies maybe not being favorable in these certain areas. So like I said, other policies might be like Social Security, healthcare, jobs, trade, you name it, taxes. I think I kind of want to talk about that. But anyway, federalism and public policy, again, it's just kind of the idea where it's broken down in a state, local, and national level. Okay, it's not just controlled by one entity. The national government can just create whatever policy they want or whatever they decide, depending on the time frame. Okay, this could cause a lot of issues throughout the states, throughout these other areas. I know I talked a little bit about some of these other issues with, let's say, the Espionage Sedition Act, 1917. Does anybody know what that is? We're going to talk about it tomorrow in American history. So that's why I'm kind of bringing it up. It kind of fits with this lesson. Jeffrey, what was it?
The espionage,
Yeah.
it was when the United States accepted and named certain people as non-United States citizens based upon their backgrounds and their nation's conduct and features.
Okay. All right. So with World War I building up to it, we all knew that we were going up against Germany. So if this was any type of talk against the government or any type of issue against the government, then they could be fined or thrown in jail for 10 years. So it was it was almost like a witch hunt, right? In a way. And some of these policies weren't accepted by many of the states. Again, some of the states were saying that this goes against people's constitutional freedoms. And just goes show, even at the national level, if they're trying to implement this at the state level, they could get a lot of kickback. And that, like I said, a good example with the mask mandates because of recent time and of current events. In some states, maybe not for it. All right, so with federalism affect public policy, number one, it affects how and where these new policies are made in the United States. For the most part, especially with climate, we all know with California, this is where a lot of these new ideas originate. Okay, usually it comes from San Francisco, right? San Francisco is kind of a almost a revolutionary way of looking at, I won't say a revolution, but new way of looking at climate. And usually it's accepted then at larger cities all throughout the United States. So Chicago will pick it up, Philadelphia, New York City, and then later implemented amongst the nation, especially with the environment. Okay, that's a good example of how these policies may be originating from other locations throughout the country and be accepting at the national level. Two, introduces limits on government policy making. So again, the national government just can't create these policies that are really overtaking the state's ability to create their own policies or be accepting of these policies. There's always kickback, right? That depends, again, of the political makeup of those certain areas. But federalism allows for people to hold different offices and have the ability to make decisions for, let's say, their local area, okay, or their state, or again, the national level. So with federalism, we all know school districts have their ability to make their own decisions, maybe different than what the state has, okay? And let's say the state level might have different decisions than what the national government might have. All right, so how they develop. So kind of talked about it already with federalism and how this is maybe accepted across the nation. Again, maybe states are used almost as a case study in a way to see exactly how these new policies are being established and if they're accepted amongst the population in a certain given state. That's kind of what my example was earlier with San Francisco and these new climate issues and raising awareness for it. Usually then it kind of spreads throughout the rest of the country. hitting these larger industrial areas and larger urban areas and then spreading to the rest of the country. In this case, 26th Amendment, we all know what the 26th Amendment is. We talked about that already last chapter and how this is making the age 18-year-old to vote. Now, Georgia was the first state to come up with this idea and implement it within their state. And then later, not long after, all the states kind of agreed, hey, this is a pretty good idea. This is a pretty good decision. Again, showing that the state was almost like a case study in a way. See how it's respected and see how it is accepted in the state, and then maybe apply it at the national level. And there are certain examples too, where the national level can implement their policies on the rest of the states as well. Now, what's an example of that? Can anybody think of one? Beginning of the chapter, I know I talked about one of the major issues with JFK and Governor Wallace. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Segregation and integration of white collar.
All right, yeah, good job. So Voting Rights, Civil Rights Act, right? A lot of that being established and set from the national level, spreading to these other states, okay, especially in the South where many of these states were kind of kicking back against this motion. But the national level then stepping in and obviously creating the opportunities for these individuals. So again, spreading from the national level to the states. And here's a good example, like I said, with the 18-year-old vote from the state level emerging to the national level. All right, I know I talked about sunset laws. So sunset laws, this is this idea where eventually these laws might become a little bit outdated. And it's only established just for a certain time period. I know I gave the example earlier about the Great Depression, right? And FDR coming up with the New Deal agencies to help benefit the United States through these rough times. And again, these New Deal agencies were only established for a short period of time. It wasn't supposed to be long lasting. It was only supposed to help for the certain given circumstances. Through this economic depression, providing jobs for the people, government funded, to try to stimulate the economy and give people hope. Once the economy started kicking back around through World War II, eventually these programs faded away. Some of them still around today, though, and helping a lot with community efforts, the environment especially, and helping people through government-funded agencies and jobs. And I talked about sunshine laws. Okay, 1967, Florida passed the Sunshine Law, making sure that these public officials hold their meetings and their discussions for the public to see. Again, trying to end corruption, try to end any type of maybe, I guess you could say, disinvolvement of individuals and citizens for these certain decisions being made by the government. So you guys good with sunshine laws? I know I talked about it with vocab, so I don't focus too much on it. And we talked about it last chapter with Thomas Jefferson. He mentioned even founding father, right? About how these laws, how these amendments should have a timetable to it. We all know that maybe these laws or amendments don't apply in the future, right? Maybe it doesn't apply to the society in, like I said, in the future. And maybe they should have somewhat of a timetable to it. And after some time, maybe with the advancements, maybe with the society changing, you can analyze these laws, maybe amendments, and think, you know what, maybe we should keep them. Maybe we should still advance it, right? Or at the same time, maybe get rid of it if it doesn't apply to today's world. I know last chapter you guys mentioned it with what? Amendment 3. I think everybody said the Third Amendment really kind of is not involved much anymore in society, obviously, with the Quartering Act, right? And I know I mentioned this before, but with the national level, they can also implement policies, okay, and ideas that can be expanded to the rest of the country. At the beginning of the pandemic, we all know the mask mandates, obviously being a policy that's accepted by the whole country at the beginning of this pandemic. And like I said before, with civil rights voting, okay, obviously being a big proponent during the 1950s and 1960s, where some states were still trying to kick back. And here the national level is applying this to the rest of the states. All right, is there any questions on policy and federalism? You guys good with that? tomorrow I'm going to talk about political parties and how federalism can affect, obviously, be affected by the political parties with different types of regulation of different areas and voting. Okay, the issues of gerrymandering. All right. So, is there any questions at all? Good. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for today.